Welcome to the Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. We want to look at the big spiritual idea behind this conversation, that in this life, someone can be outwardly beautiful while inwardly undeveloped. Yet, in the next stages of existence, the outer form begins to match the character of the inner person. What is beauty really? Why is it important to consider the fragrance of the evolving soul? How can we bring more beauty to the soul's fragrance? I'm your host, AprilHelen, and joining me today is a fully fragrant soul sister, Kerri Jones. Kerri is a development executive at her local PBS station, an author and illustrator of her own children's book series, Little Vianne Discovery, and a tea curator who helps her family's online tea store, Vianne's Teas. Hi, Miss Kerri. Welcome.
Hello, AprilHelen. Thank you for having me today. I'm
Yeah,
very
my
excited.
pleasure.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
It is. So we are considering the fragrance of the soul. Soul fragrance. What is this? In this first segment, we are taking from many philosophies on this planet one central concept that you match in the next world, on the next level, wherever we go from here. You match who you are in your true character on the inside now on this world. And there's this one specific Urantia Book quote that Miss Kerri and I have been curious over the last few weeks and maybe even
Yes,
our lifetimes. And it
agreed.
says, yeah, in the physical life, mortals may be outwardly beautiful, though inwardly unlovely. In the Morantia life, and this is what the Urantia Book alludes to as the life that we're living after this life, it is increasingly on its higher levels the personality form that will vary directly in accordance with the inner nature of the person. So you're literally going to look like on the outside who your character is right now on the inside. So as we lead with that, I'll pass it over to you, Miss Kerri. Hear your opening thoughts about this concept. Take it away.
Thank you, AprilHelen. It is a really interesting thought. There's so much throughout history, so many philosophers that has touched on this soul fragrance theme that has made you really think about what you're going to look like in the next life. And a lot of it points to you're going to look like you actually are. We can mask it here. A man can be extremely physically attractive, handsome, and he can be a serial killer, an axe murderer, but he's going to look very appealing. A woman can also be very attractive, very fit. But on the inside, maybe she does wrong, makes lots of wrong choices and treats people badly. But I think what people need to realize is this thought, and they need to explore it, that whatever you are on the inside is what you're going to look like in the next afterlife. So we really need to spend a lot more time, I think, working on our souls, spritzing our souls, as we have liked to say. Um, and what does that mean? Well, let's explore that. But I do feel like there's so much throughout history and currently, contemporarily, many people are looking to maximize their physical look. And there's no judgment here. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We all feel that. We all want to be the best that we can be, right? Whether it's physically on the outside or on the inside. But I think that as much time and effort as we spend on our physical appearance, that time and effort should also be spent on beautifying and freshening your soul, because that's really what you're going to look like in the afterlife if you do your own research and go through some of these philosophers and some of these readings. Um, I think there's a lot of truth there.
Oh, yes. I'm so glad that we got into this conversation, and you're the
Me
one
too.
that did that research about what concepts match this idea of matching our character in the next world. And I thought of another one that a lot of people on the planet, reincarnation. And, although we don't know as a human species what really is going to be beyond this planet, and it could be moving to a next level, or some consider moving right back here onto this one. Yet it's a consistent idea that you'll become who you truly are inwardly. And you
Right.
said, which brought to my mind the most recent language or phrase around this idea on the outward expression of beauty is looks maxing. And so then it took me back to my young Christian upbringing of being presentable, aesthetically pleasing in the world so that people are attracted to you and want
Mhm.
to see and learn. So then I looked a little bit deeper and have been really curious about this because although I consider myself about an average beauty on the outside. Yet, when I was a little girl, I maximized this internal beauty. And one of my favorite things is bringing good cheer. So, bringing the fragrance of the beautiful scent of optimism and positivity and real reality into this internal alignment. And we'll get into this in the third segment of this podcast, being in alignment with the values that you say you have. Yet, because you did some of the research, how about you riff a little bit about any quotes or paraphrasing that you found that validates what we're talking about here today?
Yes, thank you. Let me put my reading glasses on. All right. Um, there is a famous writer, C.S. Lewis, and he is actually credited with saying this. And a little bit further research shows that a gentleman by the name of George MacDonald actually penned this statement. um, You don't have a soul, you are a soul. You have a body. So that is short and sweet, and that really gives us pause to think. Then we have something from St. Augustine of Hippo. Since love grows within you, so beauty grows. For love is the beauty of the soul. St. Augustine of Hippo. Then we have something from St. John of Kronstadt. After death, our bodies emit an offensive odor, whilst they remain fragrant and flourishing in life and after death. We,
Mm,
by building up our body, destroy it, whilst they, by destroying theirs, build it up, caring only for the fragrance of their souls before God. St. John of Kronstadt.
mm.
So,
Those are powerful. And so we can see in humanity that this concept has been a higher calling that we can all ascend to and look up to as we're inundated in this world of looks maxing. And you and I, over the last few weeks, have had some really great conversations leading up to this podcast
we have. We
and got
have.
me really interested in where did this all start. And I considered the animal kingdom before even humans were on the planet that pe- uh, animals, I'm considering birds and like the cardinal, the blue jay, that the male really is so beautiful on the outside to attract the female. So there is this initial animalistic tendency to create this beauty on the outside to be accepted by society, by the community, by the other birds, by the female that you're trying to instigate a mating dance with. So where is it now in our human society? What sparked your desire to want to do a podcast around this awesome subject?
I don't think I wanted to do the podcast. I wanted you all to do it. But
Well,
no, I'm
I'm glad
happy.
that you took up the torch.
Well, I'm happy to be a part of it now since we've had so much time to talk. And um, well, I think that when you see so many extreme levels of trying to improve physical looks, and it gets so extreme, and just little things. It just makes you wonder how good is that really for your body, let alone your soul. I don't think the soul really matters so much because the soul, you work on your soul and you spritz your soul and you do soul searching, whether you have eyelashes out to here or not. But it makes you wonder, well, if the eyelashes are so long and heavy, what's going to happen to the eyelid as that person ages? It's just the silly things like that that make you think and make you wonder. Just vitamins and injections and surgeries and such. Um, they're so extreme. I think that that's been happening in our society, and you often wonder how is that really affecting the body? What is that really doing to the body? So I think that that's where we need to bring in some balance, and we need to be careful of how we treat our bodies in the long run. But again, I don't think it concerns the soul so much as long as you're spending that amount of time and effort on soul work, because that's really what you're going to look like. If you're that concerned about your physical appearance, what you're going to look like in the afterlife, it seems, is what is happening with your soul. So if you are a very, very handsome man and you are doing wrong, immoral acts and against the law, you're going to look like that monster, perhaps, in the afterlife, not that handsome man that you're used to looking like. But I think that we have an audience, perhaps, of mostly women for this podcast, Soul Fragrance. And the same goes for women. I think that we just need to be conscious of what we're doing to take care of ourselves, and we need to spend as much time as we can taking care of our spiritual life, our relationship with God, reading, talking to others that have questions and concerns and that wonder about the afterlife and that wonder. That's where you could spritz your soul. That's where you can increase your spiritual knowledge, your spiritual feeling, your morality. So I think that it's just really gets you thinking when you see so much effort has been put into maximizing your looks by doing so many, actually, I guess, unnatural um, physical appearances and improvements. So I think that that's kind of where this came about. It's almost so shocking, some of the things that are being marketed these days. And you wonder what young women who are more vulnerable and more gullible, if you will, don't have proper instruction as to what's really good for your body. You really wonder what effects some of these things are having. And so it is a little bit concerning. And I think that in all areas of our communities, we can start to do things that are good for the soul. And to hopefully bring a lot of notice to those things and attract young women, women of every age, to take care of their souls.
Hmm.
And what those things can be, well, we can talk about it.
Yeah, I love that. Later, just a little bit more on this. You made me think about, as you mentioned, maybe even the pressures that social media, uh, m- magazines, and
Absolutely.
how do we hold the tension between, or the balance between, this trying to feel beautiful in a culture, um, rather than that pressure of needing to look beautiful? How do we personally hold the compassion for women who are trying to feel beautiful in a culture that constantly tells them that they may not be enough because of their
Right.
outward appearance?
Right, right. And I think we talked about how magazines and even social media and influencers, everyone's, has a video camera now. That is actually bringing a little bit of balance into the images of women. For a while, the media and magazines were only showing all the beautiful physiques of women. And a lot of us grew up with watching all those perfect physical bodies, applying makeup and clothing and fashion. And it was a lot of fun to watch, but it's very hard to keep up with something like that and to be like that, to aspire to be like that. But now with social media, people of all shapes and sizes and looks, it's very diverse of all these images that you're getting with regards to beauty. So, just like anything, it's all about balance. You have one extreme and then you have another extreme, and then at some point it kind of comes up back into the middle with some sort of balance for us to look at and to think about. But I think that I don't know where the balance is with regards to all of medical and artificial type enhancements are. I don't know if we've gotten any balance there yet. Um, but there's always new techniques and new things cropping up that require some sort of balance and some sort of thinking. And let's get to the real truth of the matter, kind of thing.
It is nice that it seems that we're moving into an era that is more natural in those techniques, more holistic in the improvement of the external self. And instead of chemicals that may even have more of a negative effect on the body in the long run. And you and I, as we were in conversation over the last month, and you hit it a few minutes ago, we're not here to judge that. We
Right.
ourselves, you like beautiful lipstick. I like accessories of jewelry and doing my hair and wearing sparkly clothes. And that
Absolutely.
it's like
We want
finding
to be
whatever
human
it
if
is
we
for
can.
you, but our encouragement, which we'll get into in a moment, and maybe even a warning of it's really the inner work that we're encouraging, balanced at the same rate. You spend how much time on your outer expression,
Mhm.
and we're cheerleading you to consider that inner beauty and that soul fragrance beaming from the inside. Oh, I love that.
Spritzing the
Citrus.
soul.
Yes, I put on my
Spritzing the
essential
soul
oils
as
this
well.
morning. So as we do transition, we're moving now into the language of how important it is that we really look at what we can do. And in the third segment, we'll even dive even deeper into the practical suggestions. We turn around this idea that encouragement from the outer beauty begins with that inner soul alignment. We're living in a world where appearance is constantly measured, filtered, enhanced, compared, and sold back to us. The face and body have become a marketplace. The body and face have become an industry. Rather than only critique the culture, we want to ask, how do we begin now? So now in this next segment, we're encouraging you. We're being cheerleaders of this idea of the body and soul, the soul being fragrant from the inside out. So there's two roads to beauty. And we'll consider what the state of the world is right now and to encourage you to get a jump start now on this world and really consider what beauty and soul fragrance do you want to bring into the next life, wherever you're going from here? So get yourself beautiful now. So, Miss Kerri, what would you say about this idea of all of the different fragrances, moral fragrance, spiritual fragrance, being socially fragrant, and the concepts of all of those fragrances being lifted up by truth, beauty, and goodness?
Well, I had a lot of fun gathering up some fragrances from around the house, and there's all so very interesting. There's so many interesting bottles. I mean, they are art farms, truly. Um, this one even says beautiful on it. And some of these have really nice meanings. I even remember buying this, leaving France with whatever I had in my pocket on the plane. I had to have a very special fragrance to take home. And this one is from my grandmother in this very special bottle. And this really smells divine. So, and of course, with this atomizer, I had to even figure out what word that was for this cute little bottle because we haven't used it in so long. But with this atomizer, um, it makes me really think, just as we have all these art forms and all these different bottles and perfumes, some of them are naturally fragrant, some of them have chemicals added. They all have such different smells and they're all so interesting. You know, we have so many levels and looks of our soul. If we could look inside and see our souls, they're going to take so many different forms. I believe they're going to be pretty in some regards. I believe they're going to be not so pretty in some regards. So, what we need to do, I think, is to be more conscious of how we're developing our soul. How are we beautifying our soul? What can we do to make our soul good so that our soul will be, we will be pretty in the afterlife? Because if we want to be attractive now, we all want to feel attractive. That's just human nature. You feel confident when you're attractive. You feel like you're the best that you can be when you're attractive. Um, but we want to feel that in the afterlife, wouldn't we? I would think we would. So I think that what we need to figure out, and it could be different for every person, just like, you know, every scent is different for every woman, every man, the cologne that they wear. You know, something someone loves is really going to be almost repulsive to someone else. So, just like that being so different, we really have to all figure out, how do we spritz our souls? How are we going to make our soul beautiful for the afterlife? This needs to come to the forefront. I think that, you know, with so many writings and so many quotes and so much research and so many different styles of spiritual books or philosophers, you know, trying to tell us something. And I think that we need to just spend more time thinking about that and figuring out what we can do to beautify our souls. It's going to be different for everyone. It really will. Um,
I love that you brought that up. It is so unique to everyone, specifically when we consider our unique
mhm,
intrinsic value that each of us brings to the evolutionary supreme being. And this idea of, well, as you were talking, I thought of pheromones. Like some
right,
body odor smells really good to one person and
right,
repugnant to another person, and that not only
exactly.
um, not only underarm or body odor, yet the moral fragrance, what I alluded to, this personal free will matter that can be this contagion when you get in contact with morally fragrant persons, and the mixing, the morally fragrant person on purpose moving into situations where those who are less morally responsive, yet also the spark within, and that collaboration or meet cutes of those morally different people, morally fragrance in the difference of those people, and how they can uplift each other possibly. And then we think of the spiritually fragrant, and entire worlds can become more spiritually fragrant as we consider this point of the balance of the inner life, bringing that beauty, that truth, beauty, and goodness from the inside out. And that's where that social fragrance of genuine religion. And when I considered what the real, and if you want to look at the past podcast of Santiago and I, we did one on reframing of this word religion as a personal experience, a personal relationship that you have, and each one of us has a different religion. Mine is AprilHelen. And so in this religionist coming from me into the creation of society, that is that social fragrance that can create insights into human fellowship and nurturing human relationship. What do you think about all of that?
Well, you brought to mind a lot of different phrases that I think are really a lot of fun and catchy and kind of sum up a lot of these conversations that we're bringing up right now. So I'd like to read a few if you don't mind.
Okay.
Um, okay, well, you've heard me say spritz your soul, okay, which
Spritz your
requires a
soul.
spritzing, a little bit of a spritzing. But what's your soul scent? Yeah. What is your soul scent? That's kind of fun. Fragrance follows formation. So
Mm.
the outside fragrance is going to follow what you're forming on the inside. Truth is a toner. Truth is a toner.
Ah, a truth, a truth toner, a truth
Yes,
serum.
yes. Spirit before sparkle. That's fun.
I like that
S-
one.
Yeah, soul before serum.
Uh,
Soul
there
before
you go.
serum. Uh, spiritual Chanel number 7.
Oh.
That's an idea for someone to create. Perfume your personality.
Ooh, I like that.
So, perfection is our eternal goal, not our origin. That's just another phrase I think is really something to also think about. Um, so, I think that it would be kind of fun if some of these phrases were sort of put out there further into our, into society, that, like I said, make people really spend as much time and effort on their souls as they spend on their physical looks.
Yes.
So I think that we're touching on some things. I'm hoping that women, men will catch some of this. Take a listen, take a look, spend a little extra time on themselves, on their souls. And you never know what is going to resonate with someone. It could be a phrase in a song that really makes them think, really makes them pause and stop and listen to the meaning in that song. And it could mean something different to them than what the songwriter even intended. But I think that by doing this podcast, by bringing this topic up, we're hoping that everyone will do their own research and think about it and do some reading and start really some soul searching to make their inner beauty shine.
Mm, such deep mic drop words there. And I love all those little phrases that
hmm
Fritz the Soul is probably my favorite so far.
I think
And then
so. I think it's a good one.
yeah, and it could
Quite
definitely
catchy.
be catchy and put out. So let's start using it and encouraging people to spritz their souls
Absolutely.
as we
Absolutely.
transition to this third segment. In this final segment, we'll move into practice. Soul fragrance is not an abstract idea. It shows up in the way we live. It shows up in integrity, kindness. This beauty cannot be bought. It cannot be injected or filtered. It is cultivated, and eventually it becomes the fragrance of the soul, the atmosphere of a person who has been tending to their fragrant inner garden. Welcome back. As you know me from past podcasts with the Divine Within, I love diving into the practical techniques, methods that we can explore and get curious around. And so what comes up first, though, is what stops us, and often when we look at the practices that will encourage the things that we aspire to, in this case, creating a fragrant soul, in that attractive fragrance, because not to be differentiated from an unpleasant fragrance, right? We're definitely
Yeah.
talking about the attractive fragrance. And what comes to mind is when we were saying it at the beginning of the podcast, when it goes to the extreme where you're not even considering your inner life, right? And that's why we're here, to encourage you to consider that inner life. And generally, it's something that you mentioned earlier: vanity, pride, egocentrism, um, desiring for people to want you for who you are on the outside and not necessarily on the inside. And so there is a truth radar to that, especially when you're considering who you may procreate with, who you may mate with, or get into teams with, get into businesses with, get into communities with. There's a fragrance about you that is this kind of energetic frequency, in a way, that you're putting out as an attractor and as a magnetizer. So are you putting out what you want to attract? And to get clear on that, I think, is a really important thing.
And I think it comes from an inner confidence. You know, when you're confident about yourself, then you're more confident in what you're speaking. And you can be more your true self instead of saying, oh, I wish I would have said that, or oh, I wish I didn't say it like that. Came across wrong. I think the more that you have such inner confidence, inner beauty, rather, you will actually be saying what you mean to say, doing what you mean to do, and attracting the right people for the right reasons as well. So again, it comes back to spend as much time on your inner self as we're spending on our outer self. Um, and really thinking about what's next. What is that next life going to be? I mean, we all know we're going to die. We're all going to die and go away. Where are we going to go? What are we going to look like? What are we going to be doing? Well, we can look up in the sky. Will we be floating on a cloud for eternity? Probably not. I don't know, right? We're going to be doing something. There's a lot of readings and a lot of research that will give you more detail about what you're going to be doing, what you have the opportunity to do. But we all can pretty much agree that we're going to leave here and go somewhere else. This is where we start. Um, so if we want to look as good as we do now, or even better. What you can do is work on the inside, work on your soul. That is one thing that you have so much control over, so many choices over. You don't really have any control or choices over your outer physical looks. You are who you are because of your parents, and that's who you are. That's what you're going to look like. You have to work with what you got. But it seems to me that you can improve your looks on the next afterlife by increasing your spirituality, doing things to spritz your soul. So think about what you're going to be doing in the afterlife, what you want
Yes.
to look like. And do you want to float around on a cloud or not? Probably not. Think about that
Well,
though. So
and some think that they may come back as a cow after being a human, or a lesser class if they return to this planet. So, what are these practical things? And you and I came up with a few. And values, I mentioned that earlier. Living up in integrity to the values that we say you have. So, what are values? It's not you value a car that we're talking about, or you valuing money. It's kindness, compassion, living altruistically, living in service to the greater whole. You as an integral, unique, intrinsically valuable human, playing a role in the evolution of humanity and even the cosmos, because
Mhm.
as we may leave from this world, and I think we'll wake up in what is called the mansion worlds and just continue where we left off here, yet
Right.
in a form that is more matching, reflecting who we are in our true character here. So who are we in our true character here? And that's looking at the consequences
Mhm.
of the decisions that you made.
Right.
No, are you looking at the consequences before you make those decisions? And what that has to do with living up to the values that you say you have.
Right, right. I think that you're absolutely right. There's so many choices that we have. You have to understand yourself and those around you. There's so many things that you can do that don't require a great deal of skill or experience to be more fragrant. Exactly, and to show kindness to those around you. Being more conscious to smile at strangers. What's wrong with that? Do that. Do that. They'll smile back, and that'll feel good. Um, to just the simple things. Pass it forward theory, the
I
pass
love
it
that.
forward
You brought that up in a
concept.
recent
Um,
conversation,
that
passing
was
it forward.
that's just brilliant. Whoever came up with that, or whoever really showcased that thought. I think if we can really do more of that, and more kindness to every day throughout everyday life, it doesn't have to be this big monumental task that you take on. I think that you can do more good and spritz the souls others as well as yours, more so in all the small things that you do. And some of us don't interact with others. Some folks are home working from a home office, but maybe they're on the phone with customer service, 100, 200 people a day. Hmm. There's a lot you can do with that. Um, and so, in wherever place you find yourself, I think that you can really increase that spritzing of the soul, that kindness, that love, that divine within. Let it shine, let it come through, and you'll see. The results, or you may never see the results. Most likely you won't, but others will. Others will. And when you get to the afterlife, your soul will likely shine brighter because you will find out what difference you have made, what you have made, and what you have accomplished. The little things, the small things, and the big things. So, I think that we just want people to be more aware of the things they can do to grow their soul.
Yes. You said a lot in there, and I interrupted you because I was so excited. So I'm going to repeat that important point that we talked a lot about before, is the passing it forward, passing it on.
Oh yes.
When when you respond to someone's soul fragrance, then perhaps get curious around what it does to you, and it may inspire you to pass it forward, and what does it do to your insides, and the positivity that it might create, the hormones, the good anti-aging hormones. So if we're really talking about the health of the outer body when we're concerned with plastic surgeries or fillers, the internal, and you can do your own research. We're not going to do a deep dive into the science of it, yet the science is coming out now proving that positivity, cheerfulness, encouragement, kindness, it produces in you this anti-aging serum, is what I'm calling it. So
I
you're
love that.
literally creating the health from the inside out. So passing it forward and putting a smile on your face is one of
Right.
the easiest things that you
Right.
can
Yes.
do. A lot of people tell me I have a resting bitch face, so I have worked so hard on just turning up turning up the edges.
Uh,
And through my 30 years of yoga therapy, what I've learned about that, it automatically relates to the muscles of the lungs, and it helps to improve, to expand your lung capacity. And then what that does is help you to get more oxygen into your lungs, into your brain, so that you think more clearly. So there's this waterfall effect of
I believe
just
it.
turning up the size of the mouth.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's such a ripple effect with a simple with a smile. There's such a
Yeah,
ripple
simple.
effect. Um, I know that it reminds me of my parents. They would make a donation every year to an organization that would help children with cleft palates and to
Wow.
change that horrible look into a smile. And they just firmly believed there was just so much joy that that would give in providing that child with a smile. And hopefully, all those smiles smiled and they smiled back. Can you imagine that ripple effect?
Oh, I
I
can.
believe everything you're saying about the anti-aging effects of happiness and smiles and laughter. I don't know how we can all bring in more humor into our life. I think that that would be something that would require quite a bit of work to just be more humorous and bring more humor in. But I think somehow that's going to grow the soul as well.
I really
That will
agree
grow the
with you
soul.
on that point. In fact, I've
Yeah.
consciously you say you don't know how. I bet you know more than you think you know. And I
Hmm.
have been consciously watching stand-up comedians and consciously looking at myself less seriously, literally going to a mirror or even put myself on a Zoom recording or just a FaceTime video and smiling at myself and realizing,
That's
feeling what that does to me. And it reminds me of a project back when selfies were first coming into popularity. And
mhm.
it was specifically for young ladies to boost their confidence by learning how to take good selfies. And I thought at
Wow.
the time,
Wow.
it was back in my 20s, 30 years ago, and I was like, that is so fake and so prideful and ego. Now I'm like, it's exactly what I do. And
Fantastic
it makes me feel
exercise.
good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when
And
I
it makes you
see
feel good.
creators out in the world doing their thing to post on social media, I used to have a judgment about it, but now, I giggle and I send them good vibes and was like, they're doing their thing and good for them. And it makes me even more joyful than the judgment that comes along. So that acceptance piece of humanity, I think, is a huge inner
It is.
work that makes you more beautiful on the outside.
Definitely, definitely. And I think you made me think about perhaps some of these influencers that are not particularly physically beautiful, but because they speak and they shine and they're humorous and they're positive, that they're just so attractive. They're so
It's true.
attractive. You want to watch them, you want to hear what they have to say because they are just full of love and life and they have the divine within because they're confident. And so I think that it comes to a point where it doesn't really, like we've talked about balance earlier, it doesn't really matter, what you look like. Really matters is the soul, the inner you. And that's starting to come across now, that everybody can pick up a camera and a video. But I think that the next level, as we've mentioned so many times on this podcast, is, the hereafter, the life after. What you're going to look like is what your soul looks like. And that's a point that I feel like we need to keep getting across to young
Yes.
people, young women that, are spending so much money, so much time, so much effort on cosmetics and, possibly surgeries and artificial this and artificial that. They really just need to realize how important the soul is to beautify.
Mm, it's so
as well.
true. Well, it's scary you brought up something that we've mentioned on other podcasts before in the Divine Within series, and it's this idea of getting curious around who you surround yourself with.
Hmm.
And the 10 most influential people, even if you're not physically surrounded by them, yet who takes up space in your mind? And
Hmm.
the 10 most influential situations or personalities, and getting curious around what fragrance that they permeate into your life, and that also moves into the conversation that we mentioned before around what career, what vocation are you moving into or are you in currently, or a service project or a team that you're working with. These kind of situations add so much to what your soul fragrance is evolving from. So I think
And
that is a practical element to really look at to see how you can become more beautiful from the inside out is who you're around.
And I think you said something that made me think about, a lot of people, young people that are getting started in their careers and such may feel like, well, I'm stuck. I have to do this. This is what my job requires me to do. So I can't really, uh, fly like a butterfly, or get out there and do something different. I have to do what my career requires me to do right now. But I think that they're probably aware of this, but there's so much volunteer opportunity out there, that I think that if you consciously select some volunteer opportunities that are going to be good for your soul, they're going to spritz your soul, that it make you feel better, do good, then I think that you're leaning towards that way. You're bringing yourself into where you need to be. So I don't want you to ever feel stuck. Um, uh, you know, f- f- Find a way to do something that's going to make your inner soul grow, and your inner soul to be more fragrant. Get out there if it even requires doing volunteer work. Find a friend, talk a friend into do it with you. Make a friend. Go alone. There's birds of a feather flock together, right? Pick something you can volunteer in and go there and meet others that want to do that same task. And I think that there's really a lot of opportunity for us if you really work on it and think about it.
Mm, that is so true. And you and me, I know both of us live altruistic, service oriented lives. And I admire you because I am also working
Thank
on
you.
my first children's book. You're welcome, because you are your own illustrator for your children's book. And as you were speaking with service to the planet, you're not only bringing around truth in your books for children, yet you're also the artistic, not just the words, but the illustrations, and how important creativity is, I think, a muscle that we have to work that
Absolutely.
immediately improves connection with God and that divine uh, movement, expression out into the world to help evolve the human species. I'm so proud of you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. It really, there's a story to it all for another time, of course, but doing something that was a little bit out of my comfort zone,
That
um, uh,
that's a
eh,
good practical tool.
absolutely. I did not intend to be my own illustrator, but it just happened that way. And I realized that it was passable. It was not so bad. It was actually good. And I have
It's
improved
very
on the
good.
third book. There's a lot of color in my illustrations. That's for sure. It's very colorful. But I got out of my comfort zone. I had to, and I got into something I had no idea I was going to enjoy so much. And it's interesting because this task of illustrating my children's books require hours and hours of just head down at a kitchen table, hours on end, in quiet almost, and thinking about what I want the image to look like. How is it going to match the text and the manuscript? I've changed the manuscript slightly to match the illustration that I desire. So I feel like doing a task like that is almost like growing my soul in a way, because I am asking for help. I am praying for help. I'm wanting some guidance. I'm thinking. But most importantly, I am listening to my thoughts. A lot of time we will pray and beg and plead, but we're scattered, running here and there, hither and thither. I mean, I've done years and years of that. Trust me. Um, um, but when you stop and listen to, or just be available to listen to your thoughts, maybe a thought will come to you that, well, that's a good thought. And you wonder, did I think that, or was I given that thought? I don't know. But when you provide that time, that quiet time, getting out of your comfort zone, providing an activity that allows you to think, um, then you might actually be given some guidance if you allow yourself some quiet time. Um, a lot of us will be commuting. To work, or instead of putting the radio on and listening to everybody else's babble, you can use that time to hopefully be available to hear what God has to tell you. So there are many situations that people may find themselves in, that will allow them the opportunity to pray, to hear thoughts, and to maybe get answers and guidance. Um, and that comes about when you make that conscious effort to do something good, to do something different, to do some volunteer work, just to get out of your comfort zone and help to spritz your soul.
I love that. I love that you brought up um, doing the uncomfortable. And
Yes,
so this is an encouragement to all of you out there who have had a lifelong dream. If you have had a lifelong dream that you haven't put energy into, I am here to tell you, just get started, because just putting an idea down on paper, or even making some notes in AI, or I love the fact that you don't use AI for your illustrations, by the way, that moving out of that thinking that it can't be done, but it's an idea that you've had for 40 or 50 years. I think that it's supposed to come out of you. If you've had that
absolutely.
dream for so long, it's itching to come out of you. And how
And
that being
here's
uncomfortable is going to be that soul fragrance building.
Absolutely. And I must say, I got some help from friends. But the reason why I got help from friends is because if you think it and you speak it, then the conversations can come into play, and someone may help you, offer you some guidance. Somebody before me published a book and told me A, B, C, one, two, three. This is what you do. Somebody else told me this is a gal who takes your thought and puts it into a book. So I got guidance from friends, guidance from spiritually fragrant friends, and that's what made the difference for me. So if you can think it, you can get it out, you can talk about it, and then eventually you'll do it. So there is a process to that, I believe. But get started. You're absolutely right. Get started. Start speaking about it. Get it going.
Oh, I love that. I think I'm saying his name correctly. Goethe, maybe Geothe. And I'm paraphrasing,
Both, I
y-
think.
yet it's be bold. And if something, I said it before, and it needs to be said again repeatedly, of this is the time to do it. And the more I get comfortable with doing something, there is a peace that comes around it. When I initially have had a thought, and I get anxious or lack of confidence, and then I have the thought multiple times over a certain duration, whether it's short or long, there is a peace that comes with it. And like you said, when you start talking about it, it will start attracting. You're putting that soul fragrance out into the world that is the magnetizer for that service project, that initiative, a new business, a new organization to come into reality to help create what we were talking about earlier in another segment, that social fragrance and the spiritual fragrance of an entire planet. So we'll leave on these thoughts of spritzing your soul, encouraging you to smile, get curious around what values are you living in integrity with, and do something. Get courageous and confident. Start talking about that dream and bringing your beauty that you wish to see when you wake up on the next planet, on the next level, wherever we go from here. Start understanding that you can begin now by bringing that beauty forward so that you're even more beautiful. Miss Kerri said it before, you're even more beautiful on the
You have
next
control
level.
over that.
That's the thing. You have control over it.
You have control to make those choices to be more beautiful. Absolutely. So we
So
want to
all of you out
spritz
there,
our souls.
spritz your souls. Thank you for joining us on this
My pleasure.
podcast of The Divine Within. I'm AprilHelen, your host, with our guest, Kerri Jones, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
On the Divine Within podcast, we share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.